Chris Tebbets, welcome to Writers in Relationship.
Hi, thank you for having me back.
So we have a great origin story, and that's always my first question is tell the people who are watching the story of how we know each other in our relationship, which goes way back.
Right. So it was the fall of 1994. I had just finished my eighth season of summer stock theater in Killington, Vermont, and I was ready to leave New York City behind. And so I took on a producer role and came to Vermont with the intention, among other things, of living here, but also of producing a touring children's show for that summer stock theater company to happen through the school year. And I didn't know what I was going to get after New York City. And I put out a couple of, I don't even remember how I reached you with the audition notice.
I
But
think it
there
was
I
in the
was.
paper. It was in the paper. Yeah.
Did I put it? Okay.
So yeah.
And that my audition was sparsely attended, and I was starting to wonder what was going to happen with this show. And then this person walked in and did a monologue from Charlie Brown, You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, all about eating a peanut butter sandwich and watching the little red-haired girl across the playground, or whatever that monologue was. And I was like, okay, we're gonna be okay. Um, and you were sort of the first theatrical bright light I saw after I moved to Vermont, and that was 32 years ago.
Like, and then we had so much fun. Remember, like all the times in the van when we were touring around.
Touring to schools in the winter in a van with no heat. Like
Oh my
we
God,
earned our
how
bona
many
fides.
dates? That was crazy that we did that.
Yeah.
And is that where
Uh,
the lasagna thing happened?
right? Anybody who's been on any kind of tour knows that like one questions come up on the bus or the van or whatever, right? Entertaining ourselves. And right, we asked what food I think would you be? And maybe it was me. Somebody said Gail would be a lasagna for all of her layers and different ingredients.
What were you? Do you
I don't
remember?
remember
We had a lot. Yeah, we laughed a lot. We laughed a lot.
ever
Um,
since.
and then you moved from theater more toward writing, and maybe just talk a little bit about that. How did that evolve for you?
Um, Moving from New York City to Vermont, I mean, it sort of tracks from what I was just talking about, was a definite embracing of the idea that I was going to be doing less theater. There's just less theater available for me to be doing. And the reason I moved to Vermont was I've always talked about this. I loved doing theater, but I didn't love the business of theater. I didn't like looking for work and that sort of thing. So once I moved to Vermont, I started taking classes in writing and just, trying to be a creative person in an entirely new environment. And there was something about the first class I took about on writing for kids, which has been my writing career, was with Ruth Horowitz in Burlington, Vermont, and something about that audience, and specifically when I eventually found middle grade novels, not convinced me, but I loved it enough to do all the other stuff that I didn't want to do in the world of theater. I always talk about there's the art of the art, and then there's the business of the art. And something about writing, like a lot of writers, I love the solitude of writing. I love the full control I have over the world of the story. Something about that sort of brought everything together for me to the point where I was willing to become, a businessman, motivated enough to try and make a living at that stuff, at writing versus theater, where I never really quite clicked in.
That's interesting. It
And
sounds
then, when I go to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, no, just keep going.
When I do school visits these days, I mean, one of the things that teachers like that I bring is a certain honesty. And I have a slide in my school visit presentation with the word actor crossed out, movie director crossed out, theater director crossed out, all the things that I tried along the way. And I talk about how I felt like for 20 years, I didn't publish until I was 40. So for the first 20 years of my real adult life, I felt like I was failing from one thing to another to another. And what I tell kids, and it's absolutely true, is that while it wasn't an entirely reassuring process, what I was doing was gathering storytelling experience and looking for my correct form. And in fact, we're here today to talk about the theater camp for writers workshop that I've been putting on and that you attended last spring. And when I stumbled upon that format, theater camp for writers, what do acting and directing and improv have to teach us as writers? I just felt like everything I've always been interested in came together in one experience, and I've loved um, getting to reclaim my 20 years of theater experience, but in a new way that works for me.
Yeah, it's thrilling. It's thrilling that program, the fusion of those things.
Mm. I, I I thought so too. This is you and I have talked about this. This is an idea I deeply believe in, and now I just have to like keep finding my audience for it. I've never had any doubt. I've always insisted with myself that any kind of writing workshop I give, or especially something like this, which sounds sort of fluffy and fun, that it be practical, that it be about craft, but that it also be fun. Not just because fun is fun, but because fun motivates us to come back to the page. Fun motivates us to come back to the project.
Yeah. We have to tempt our little creative essence to do, we have to like entice it. We can't just discipline. We can't just
That's right.
make it force it to practice. We have to lure it out, right?
That's right. A lot of people say we have to trick ourselves into writing.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing how many writers love not writing.
Oh. So tell me a little bit about how you developed Theater Camp for Writers as a program, because I'm curious about that.
So when I was first toying with this idea and starting to realize that it might come together as a workshop, I was talking to some people with theatrical backgrounds who are also writers. And one of those people was a woman named Erica Pearl. And she talked to me about the way she comes at theater from three perspectives: generative, which is about generating new work; developmental, which is about editing and developing the stories that we're as we're writing them, or developing the play, which is the rehearsal part; and performative, which is, of course, in theater, it's the performance of the piece. So how again can that was a useful rubric for me. So that how can we apply that to writing? How can we use theatrical techniques like improv to generate new material for writers? How can we use developmental techniques on people's works in progress? And this is really the heart of the workshop, where we take somebody's prose and we put it into a scene where people take roles, as you well know, and we actually have the author and the workshop facilitator as director, and other volunteers, other writers from the group actually acting out the scene. That's really as I said, the core of the workshop, and that's the developmental piece, which is my primary focus. But then there's also a performative aspect to being not just a writer, but being an author out in the world. And there I'm talking about public speaking, which is hard for a lot of writers. I'm talking about school visits, all the public appearances, interviews, and all of that stuff. I also like to talk to writers a lot about some of the skills that people don't always associate with writing, especially when they're not thinking about that outward facing performative piece. The number of accomplished writers who get up in front of an audience with a book and just read like this without ever looking up stuns me. I think that, whether or not we like it, we are entertainers to our audience, and reading your work and being able to speak about your work and reading your work in a way that's going to entertain an audience completely dovetails with theatrical techniques. And I think it's a piece that I don't see in a lot of workshops that I like to bring to the theater camp workshops as well.
It's such a good point. It's such a good point because a lot of times I hesitate to go to readings because I think it's going to be boring. Like because of that, because of what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, it's one of my dirty secrets. When people have a presentation and then they read from their work, it's quite often my least favorite part of the whole session.
Okay, so that's that's the sort of like design piece. So when did you first start doing it, and how have you kind of honed it since the beginning?
I'm trying to remember. It was April of 2025 that we did the full 3-day retreat. I've only done that one time, and that's coming up again in April of 2026 at the Highlights Foundation, which we can talk about too, because I know you love that place as much as I do. And on the one hand, it's sort of a lifetime of development, but I think before we did the full retreat, I had about a year of finding takers for one-time workshops or two-session workshops where we would do scene readings. I think this is where it began, in another class I taught, where we would just do Zoom meetings, which were like not stage readings, but scene readings. And the idea sort of generated from there. And what that showed me over time was, as much as that 3-day retreat last April was maybe my favorite professional experience ever. It was fantastic. It's a completely flexible idea as well. We can do theater camp for writers in an hour. We can do it in 6 hours, an all day thing. So the thing that the idea has taught me in return is it's a completely flexible thing. So I think that would have been really not that long ago, 3 years ago, that I really started thinking about this seriously. And when I originally conceived it, I imagined it as a retreat only. And I guess I'm repeating myself now, but it's been really fun to realize, no, we can do this in lots of ways. My next step is to start taking it into schools with middle schoolers, people who are the age of my audience of reader as well.
Oh, that's
So
really exciting.
yeah,
Really exciting.
yeah.
What are people, I mean, I can tell you how it was for me, but I'm curious about what people are telling you. Like what are the ranges of responses that people are saying why it was valuable for them?
My favorite response, and I have a bunch of theatercampforwriters.com is the website. Theater spelled with an ER, not an RE. I have a lot of testimonials on the website from last spring's workshop. And my favorite quote, I think, came from a writer that you know, of course, Brianna McGuckin as well. And
Mhm.
what she said was putting scenes on their feet in the workshop setting, taking her work and hearing it through other people's, eyes and mouths and ears. Um, it it forces the participants into the scene. It forces the participants to give feedback on what's on the page, as opposed to, I don't remember her exact quote, but as opposed to sort of a sitting around a table traditional writing workshop, where often what authors receive is feedback on things that actually are not their focus or not their intention for the story. And this really, she said, the insights come quick and vital when you force everyone inside the scene as opposed to sort of examining it from the outside, which I thought was a really brilliant uh, piece of input. And then the other thing, another participant, Tiffany Maccarelli, who you'll remember, she said that she knew it would be valuable for her manuscript. She had no idea how valuable it would be to work on other people's scenes as well. And for me, that's super important. I don't want people to spend an entire retreat just waiting for their 2 45-minute sessions on their own work. It needs to be, this is what I was talking about before. It needs to be practical at every turn.
It's really great. And so I'm thinking I've got some friends that I want to try to get to because I'm going to come. Very, 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 very excited.
Yay.
Second time. But a couple of my friends are pretty introverted. So I think it might be a hard sell. So what would you say? I mean, and there's many writers who feel introverted or shy or feel like I don't know, can I get up there and
Yeah.
and I'm going to be embarrassed or like what would you tell those people?
Um, I only wish that I could let people know how sincere what I'm about to say is, which is, well, I was talking to you about this a minute ago. At the April retreat, we had a woman who was probably the shyest in the group, the quietest in the group, zero theater experience. We also had a guy who was playing the role. I'm sorry?
Tiffany? No,
Her mom, Rini.
I got it right.
Yeah. But Tiffany as well. There were several introverts, as you will find in a group of writers. We also had a guy, Anthony, who was rehearsing the role of Hamlet in his local theater. So it was very reassuring to me to realize that the people who had no experience and were reluctant to get up in front of the group to do anything like this, as well as the experienced actors, they all got a lot out of the workshop. And I think part of that comes with the chemistry, the group building chemistry that happens over the course of the workshop or the weekend. But I also I try to stress with people in all of the promo that I do that no theater experience is required here, no acting, nobody's required to participate in the scene work. I always say that everybody always does participate, and everybody finds that it is actually much less threatening than they realized. I think the fact that we give people scripts, which is to say the prose that they will be working from to create scenes, scripts in their hands to read the words off of, I think that's a big help for people who might be otherwise intimidated by getting up in front of a group. That said, a lot of people were pushed outside of their comfort zones in their workshop, but I don't know of anybody who had an unpleasant experience being pushed out of their comfort zone. I will never pretend that this won't be a threat, sort of a intimidating idea for some people, and maybe at a higher proportion among writers. But as I've said, I've never gotten negative feedback from any introverts that they were sorry they did it. But that's a tough selling point.
Well, I mean, this is interesting because there's this thing that Aaron always tells me about called the zone of proximal learning. I don't know if you know that concept where
No.
if you push somebody, if I'm here and I want to be here, if you push me over here, it's not going to work. It's too far. The zone of proximal learning is more like in this area. So getting up with a script is that's within my zone of proximal learning. Being in cast in the role of Hamlet and performing in front of 350
Right.
is outside. So it's within the zone of proximal learning. And I think what's interesting too is that those the situations that we're in theater camp are less intimidating than getting up in front of a school presentation or getting up in front of a bookstore reading. It's actually less intimidating. So it's really good practice for some of the stuff that we're going to probably have to do anyway. And it's a great chance to build skills, for people who don't have that. I mean, I've been a teacher. I mean, it's easy for me to do. But for somebody
Yeah.
who doesn't have all of that experience, this is a great moment and a really safe environment to practice in front of people that you really get to know really well over those 3 days.
That's a really great point, including the fact that people, while it may be intimidating, especially at the very beginning, to get up and be part of a scene, if you're helping another writer by doing that, I think that helps as well. I'm not here, it's
Yeah,
not here about
totally.
me. We're here
Yeah,
about the other
yeah, yeah,
person.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, and it's super, super, super community focused. That was the vibe the whole time that we're all
That's
helping.
always, yeah. That's
Yeah.
super important to me as well. I mean, especially these days more than ever. And this whole podcast of yours is about relationships. And one of the just general pieces of wisdom I always took with me from a friend, Julie Berry, talked about, for instance, as a writer, you go to a bookstore or for an event and nobody shows up. However, you're not just there to read to people who show up at the bookstore. You're making relationships in the business, and you've made a relationship with a new bookstore owner. And the idea of doing the business of publishing or the business of theater with the motivation of forming relationships as opposed to having the motivation of selling anything really changes the lens as well. And theater is all about creating relationships, figurative and literal.
Yeah. No, that was such a beautiful piece of that experience for me. Um,
Do you want to say anything else about your own? I
oh
mean, as somebody
yeah. I
who
mean,
came with a deep resume.
I don't want to like sound like an ad, but I'm going to because I friggin' loved it. And I can say fucking because it's my podcast.
There we go.
I loved it. I loved it. I loved every single thing that happened. And it was so varied. There was a woman that from was she a publisher that gave a talk through video,
Oh, yeah, an editor, yeah,
and she gave a talk. We did these warm-ups. S. Maxwell, I was forgetting
Maxfield.
Maxfield. She's amazing, and she has all of this body centered experience, and she did these theater warm-ups that I have literally been using in my writing and in my writing coaching with other people. I've like to this day I'm still integrating some of those concepts. The um I always forget the name of the theory, but
The Laban technique.
yes, yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So like that was mind blowing and really great for me as a sort of intellectual nerd, to get that theory stuff and to experience it as a performer and then to work it into the writing part. I mean, just thrilling. Um,
Part of this whole thing comes from my interest in the cross germination among, like what does the structure of a symphony have to teach me about, introductory chapters and bridges and story structure? What does dance have to teach me about, I don't know what does acting have to teach me about choices I may make for character? And one of the things she did, she has a much more academic background than I do, and she really translated, again, I'm stressing this point that it's all practical. She translated this idea that as we're doing some of the physical warm-ups, like put yourself on one foot and then throw yourself off balance in some other way. And then how might you do that to your character?
that's
Always fold
that's the one.
back
That's
in.
the one I keep using. Stability,
Yeah,
mobility, right?
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
and the people, the leaders, the other faculty that were teaching with you, everybody was so different. So like I had a session with Sarah, I had a session with I had a session with you, and I mean all of those just had a slightly different flavor. We did essentially the same thing, but through leaders bring different essences and different qualities into the experience that I loved. I loved the evening where everybody read from their work,
mhm.
sort of a cabaret kind of thing that we did.
Yeah.
We did yoga upstairs in the morning. That was really fun. Just a really nice way to start the day. I didn't do it every day. I like that I had free time. Like I was doing some visual art and I would just take, an hour here and there and just go paint just to kind of get my head into a different space. And the grounds it highlights is so beautiful. The cabins were so wonderful. Just aesthetically, just to stay in and to just feel like, oh, I'm in this little cabin in the woods, and it was so fun. And just
It's hard to.
meeting the
Oh, go
other
ahead.
people. I mean, I literally I could go on all day. I
Yeah,
really could. I mean, I it would be very difficult for me to imagine somebody not having a great experience. And it is, and the practical thing too, I came home and I had things that I didn't have before I participated in it.
which is great to hear.
Yeah.
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 And as you know, it's hard to communicate how special a place Highlights is. I mean, this
Oh,
is
yeah,
a
yeah.
workshop that I run independently, but we use their infrastructure, their campus, their cabins, their 3 meals a day. Everything's provided. And one of my very favorite things about going to Highlights is seeing people who come for the first time, and they're like, "Oh, okay, now I understand." It's really it's as a writer, it's my most favorite special place in the world, I think.
Yeah, you would tell me before I went, you were like, it's kind of magical, and it is kind of
And
magical.
it is,
It
yeah.
really is. The main building is so gorgeous, and so the feeling that you have when you're in it, it's this beautiful wood, high ceiling. It's like an old barn, right? Is
It
that what
is. I mean, those are reclaimed barn timbers. Yeah.
I mean, just stunning. The food is fucking out of this world. So, 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 so good. I always feel like I gain like 10 pounds every time I go. And it's just
Right.
so great. And they accommodate different diets too, right?
They're incredible that way. Yeah. They're very customer focused. And yeah, they really try to provide a good experience for everyone. Their hospitality team works really hard on that.
And they're very, very nice people. Like when I would run into the staff, they would typically, oh, how's it going? And like soliciting, they're checking in a very light touch kind of way that I
It's a
like.
little like being on a cruise, like, could we have some popcorn for tonight's movie night? Sure, you can have some popcorn for tonight. They're there for you.
Oh, that was another thing we did. We had game night.
Yeah.
Do you remember
Oh,
that?
wait, we played a lot of games, and we also watched the theater camp movie as well.
Oh, I actually didn't do that, but yeah, I heard about it. People had a lot of
Yeah.
fun. Yeah, it was super, super, super fun.
The other thing you mentioned is that there was free time for you. I mean, this is always when I first started teaching at Highlights, I wanted to give people their money's worth, and I packed every out, like with stuff to do. And there was always something to do at this workshop, but the whole idea is it's a choose your own adventure kind of experience, and nobody's required to be at any given session. And it really is. Again, when I started out as a professional, I thought I had to be I went to a conference or a retreat, and I had to be constantly productive. But part of being productive as a writer is taking that time to go for that walk, sit by the river, be alone, and then come back. So
Yeah,
we try to build that in as well.
which is really nice. Oh, and something that I did, and I think you did this, and Sarah, a bunch of people did this. We took some extra days on the end,
If
which
any, yeah, yes, I always I don't talk about that one a lot, but whenever I tell people at a workshop like, "Oh, I'm going to stay a couple extra days," they're like, "I should have done that."
yeah.
Um, Highly recommended.
And because 3 days isn't really that long. Like, if you're coming from New York City, it's pretty quick. It's just a few hours. But if you're coming 5, 6 hours away, it's short. You might want to on either
That's
end,
exactly. That's
right?
right. I mean, that's about how far I am, and that's right. And as long as it's occurring to me right now, uh, circling back to what I said before, I'm happy to take this workshop anywhere. I mean, a large part of what we're talking about right now is the April retreat, and I hope some of the people who are listening to this will be interested. But if anybody's interested in the topic and not the retreat specifically, I invite everyone and anyone to be in touch with me. As I said, it's a really flexible idea, and I love to travel with this workshop, so I'm happy to come anywhere as well.
And I've done it both on Zoom and in real life. I did one of those earlier Zoom
Yeah.
workshops, and of course, I liked it in person a lot better. But I got a lot out of it doing it on Zoom.
Yeah, I mean, there is a whole sort of classroom based. I have about a 2 hour workshop on this topic where I look at film and TV and talk about the theory behind all of this, which is really interesting. But what we learned at the retreat last year is that that's the supplemental material, and that it's really the actual scene work for the writers that's the heart of the workshop, including when we do Zooms as well, and letting people hear their own work and get feedback in that way.
It's really, I have to also say, it is so trippy to hear people read your stuff out loud in character.
Yeah.
It's first of all, it's trippy to hear anyone else besides me read my work. that's a beautiful, wonderful gift. But when you have people in character, it really is, I can't even explain why it's such a dramatic thing that you hear things that you don't hear when there's just one voice. And the people who are, like you were talking about, how the people inside it, they have a different perspective because they've experienced the work from the inside. And it's very it's not the kind of thing you can explain. Like you have to experience it to really understand
Mm.
why it's so powerful, but it's very powerful.
I've heard that from a lot of people, and it always reminds me of when I would direct plays and I would do my 2, 3 months of prep and then show up for that first read through. And I would hear things that I had after reading the play dozens of times that I had never noticed because it was coming out of somebody else's brain and mouth. So that's yet another way in which the art form of theater can be really conducive to the developmental part of writing as well. I do love that about it.
What else are you working on just in your writing life, just out of curiosity right now?
My soundbite that I've been saying to people, my 2025 was an incredibly creative year for me, and I did a ton of writing, which has dropped off in the last couple of months. I've turned my attention to, as they say, authoring. I keep talking about the business side of things, and so I've been developing my school visit end of things, and doing a lot of marketing and reaching out to schools and developing this idea, theater camp for writers, for schools, for kids. I just actually got my first booking in a school for a theater camp workshop. So that's a whole new arm of this as well. So I've been uh, a little frustrated at the lack of writing. I mean, doing the business, this seems to be a theme in this conversation, but trying to get it all done, make the art and sell the art, or what, however you want to phrase it. Um, you know, Laurie Halse Anderson, who I'm sure a lot of people have heard of before, very famous YA writer. I remember her talking about how she works about 60 hours a week, and 30 of those are writing and 30 of those are authoring. It's a lot.
Yes, we have
That
to
said, I've got a middle grade manuscript. Oh, sorry. What?
no, so we have to sleep and eat.
We have to, that's right. But I do
Yeah.
have a middle grade manuscript I'm pecking away at as I have been for many years. And I'm running, for anybody who's interested, I'm running a writing sprint subscription service. For anybody, we have found, my teaching partner and I have found that getting together on Zoom for writing sessions where we chat for 5 minutes, write for 2 hours, and chat for 5 minutes on the way out, there's something about that soft accountability, which there's a little bit of magic in it. I don't exactly know why it works so well for people, but it has upped productivity for the writers I work with in a way I've never seen before. So again, if somebody's interested in that, by all means, get in touch with me. More authoring, more business type stuff. It is
Yeah.
has been the focus. Yeah,
Is the manuscript that you're working on the one that you were working on last April that you
yeah,
shared something? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm very, very curious about that.
yeah. We'll like so many writers, I've got to finish that book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else? Anything you want to leave people that are listening with advice or thoughts about?
Um,
Yeah, anything.
I feel like I've already said it, but it's sort of behind the whole idea of this workshop, which is, the practicality of making your work compelling to yourself, of making your work fun to yourself, and finding, and publishing, at least children's publishing, the place that I know the best in the world of publishing, it's getting harder and harder out there. It's harder to publish than it used to be. There are a lot of we've got AI against us. We've got celebrity books sort of measuring against us. And in that regard, it has never been more important to me or my teaching partner or most of the writers I know to have a community of creative people around us and to write the best work that we can and to stop questioning ourselves so much. It's never been more important to have a unique voice out there to really stand, to help you stand out in the marketplace, but also to be expressing the art that you are here to express. And while we are measuring our creative choices against our business choices, that can be difficult sometimes. Is anybody going to want to publish this? Is anyone publishing this these days? I'm trying to throw those questions out the window and just be as creative as possible. The paradox often is by finding our own true voices, the ones that we think might be too weird or less acceptable. That's quite often where people find their success. It's certainly been true of me when I stopped trying to please people and really leaned into the kind of writer that I am for, I wanted to be a literary sort of edgy kind of writer, and that's just not the writer I am. I found my success when I was like, oh no, I watched too much TV as a kid. I write pop culture. And, even if that's not the writer I thought I wanted to be, that's the writer I am, and that's where I found my success.
That's great. Thank you so much, Chris. I'm so excited for
Thank
you.
you.
So excited.
Me too. Me too. I can't wait to do this again.